What's up, guys? Music fan here, and here to present yet again a new segment of my channel, which is called My Top Five. And basically, it's pretty self-explanatory. My top five favorite studio albums coming out of an artist's discography review that I would have just reviewed. I did one before for at the drive-in, but I only did it within the relationship of command review just to kind of go quickly by because my videos at the time were still stuck at 15 minutes in length. But I'm going to be doing this on a separate discography basis kind of thing. Like each and every time I finish a discography review, I would pick at the very least 5 studio records from that band or from that artist. And that's mostly because I've seen other people do like a top 10 or a top 15 or a top 30 on I don't know a top 30, but surely they do much longer top something favorites of their records or whichever. And I think it'd be much easier, more simpler for me to do a top 5, even if the artist has more than 5 records. It'd be much more easily manageable for me in this sense. And so these are going to be my top 5 favorite Linkin Park studio albums ever for me. Now, this kind of has to be said first and foremost. This is just my top 5 list. These are just my personal opinions and views on why I place these records, Linkin Park records, in a particular spot, in a particular order. Now, just because a record from them will be at the bottom of my list doesn't necessarily mean that I think the record is terrible or I think that record is awful. It's just basically the ranking of these records just goes for personal appeal for me. It's just based on my personal appeal. It's just based on how much I like the records, how much I think they merited with me, or how much I like the music per se. Because in general for Linkin Park, I do like all of their records, even their experimental ones, especially their experimental ones. But I still love the older stuff. In most cases, I still love Hybrid Theory and Meteora. But with that being said, I am kind of running short on time, so let me do this really, really quick. Starting with number 5. So number 5 favorites, number 5 studio album for me has to be Minutes to Midnight. And I've said in that review of this record that it's my least favorite Linkin Park studio album. But it's not to say that the music itself is bad, but just that the album as a whole just doesn't sink in with me. Of course, that's being that Linkin Park was trying to experiment with new genres, with new sounds. They were trying to incorporate different things into their sound and deviate from their metal sound, which comes out really good in some songs in most respects. But because they experiment a lot with different sounds and they try to find their way into their new style and their new sound, then of course it will come out. The flow of this record will come out very shaky. So but despite that, it has its good moments. It has really good moments, but as a record, it just doesn't hold up for me, and it's at the bottom of my list because it just doesn't, as a record as a whole, as opposed to individual moments, just doesn't gravitate with me. Although I still like this record, I still like it from time to time. Number 4 has to be Meteora. And it's not because, like I said, it's not because I think the music is horrible. By no means is Linkin Park's music horrible, but I think the really awesome thing about Meteora is that you start to kind of see the band embracing their strengths, but at the same time they start to kind of tinker with it a little bit. Like you see in a song like Breaking the Habit, for instance, it was slightly more dancey-ish. Not so much a dance song, but it was had this groove sensibility to it, and a slightly experimental sensibility to it too. You could definitely see a little bit more of a maturity with the songs especially with Somewhere I Belong. Like another favorite track from that album for me. But essentially, as its appeal is concerned, its longevity appeal is concerned, it's really not a record that doesn't gravitate me as much. It's like because I've musically matured and have expanded into much non-rock music genres, then while I do and still enjoy their new metal sound off of Meteora, at times it just kind of comes out a little bit too, I don't know, too same old for me. Especially since I'm now in a much different musical place than I was when I first heard that record. Still really great in some places, and I still like the record in most cases, but it just doesn't appeal to me as much anymore. Number three favorite Linkin Park studio album is their latest one, Living Things. And I kind of gave this record like a half by half rating a bit here, but it's again not to say that this record is bad or horrible. It just, like Meteora, its appeal isn't gravitated towards me as much. I don't like, and it's higher on the list for the reasons that that not only do they harken back to their older sound, or they try to harken back into the sensibility of their older sound, but they also kind of put a little bit of extra flavor with the electronic experimentation of their last two records. It's A Thousand Suns especially, which is why you get these little bits of electronic textures that give these songs, especially with the return of Brad Delsin's guitar in supportive flowing of the songs, a little bit of an extra flavor to them, a little bit of an extra bounce to them, which really kind of gives these songs a more dancey type of feel, which is really, really cool. But as a record that I would have expected to be a little more ambitious in its quality, a little bit more ambitious in the songwriting, and Mike Shinoda to get a little bit more of a rap time on this record, it's a record I like, but it's not a record that I really love. It's not a record that I gravitate to as much. I definitely do gravitate to this record a little more than Meteora, but but it's kind of a bit of a so-so record for me. Still good, but a little bit of a meh. Number two favorite Linkin Park album for me, and this is gonna be really, really big, but number two for me has to be their first album, Hybrid Theory. Now, Hybrid Theory is, of course, a fantastic, phenomenal album. Linkin Park would not be Linkin Park without Hybrid Theory. And of course, all the songs are basically, especially the hit singles, are anthems of our childhood. They were anthems of my childhood growing up, and definitely will be for quite some time, even like forever in that instance. But like Meteora, in the sense, because I've expanded myself musically, I listen to more ambient techno kind of stuff right now. Not necessarily dubstep, but still even that, not necessarily that. But it's just that like, as a record of its sound, the new metal sound, which I personally enjoy. I still enjoy a lot of, like the really, really hard songs like By Myself and Forgotten and One Step Closer. I still rock to One Step Closer. But as an album as a whole, and as its musical appeal to me, it just, it doesn't pale in comparison per se to any of their later stuff. But it's just not a record that, in the sense that I feel that it's been giving a little bit too much weight, in a sense. Like you have an artist, a singer's debut album or a band's debut album is so gigantic, it's so big, that all the other records after it will just pale in comparison to that first record. And it doesn't help necessarily either that the more militant Linkin Park fans kind of take this first album and shove it in the band's face, like recreate this first album, like even past the point where the band has really far surpassed and far outgrown that sound, that nu metal style, and it's just like it's just that like little mini perception of the record is like, which doesn't allow Linkin Park to have the freedom or the limitlessness of growing themselves musically, or expanding or experimenting with different new sounds. Even as far back as Hybrid Theory, they were doing that. They were experimenting with different sounds, different textures, different sets of music, and like that's like the slightest thing that kind of bothers me about it, is that the album has a lot of weight on it, to the point that none of the other records gets enough chance to deserve to be listened to. But even still, like, besides that little big mini gripe of mine, like, it's still a fantastic record in its own right. It's still a fantastic record that has defined Linkin Park for better or even for worse. And I still love that album very immensely much. And my personal favorite Linkin Park album, you guys probably know what this is going to be, and it's 1,000 Suns, their fourth studio album, 1,000 Suns. Now, I've explained in my 1,000 Suns review that there's a reason why this is my favorite album, and it's my favorite because the music is just expansive. It's experimental. It's ambitious. It's epic. It's the band kind of taking everything that they've built up until this point, even the experimental Minutes to Midnight, and just it's kind of like the equivalent of having like a glass stained window that has like different colors. You smash the window down, breaks into little shards of pieces, and then one by one you take each piece and then you put them back together with like glue or something, and out comes this really beautiful piece of glass that when the sun's rays shine through, and then you get different colors acting out of the reflection of the sun. And that's what I feel with this music of this record, that is just so expansive, so epic, so ambitious, and yet at the same time it's just so lyrically universal. It's like, again, it's still like a nuclear conceptual themed record, but at the same time it's also a universal one. Like, you can apply your own life into that record. And still has the Linkin Park tension sensibility with it. Still has not so much the new metal, but still has the core angst, the core tension, the core anxiety that has been very prevalent of Linkin Park's songs. And also, the other reason why is just that the lyrics to this album is just absolutely beautiful. The lyrics are just so, not only just cathartic in the sense of anger, but they're cathartic in the sense that there's a lot of yearning. There's a yearning for escape, or not even just for escape, but yearning for elevation, yearning to rise above a really horrible situation and into the light, like being that light of whatever you call it, whatever you have you will. But it's a record, I think, that lyrically can speak to our times right now. It's socially conscious. It fulfills the ambition of what Minutes to Midnight was trying to do, and it really speaks to the times that we live in, especially the times that we live in now. War, terrorism, poverty, all sorts of different stuff. And Linkin Park truly has created a masterpiece album that for me is just greatly ambitious, greatly powerful, and immensely profound. Sure, Linkin Park are not going to be a Pink Floyd. Sure, this record is just never going to be a stone's throw ahead of Dark Side of the Moon. Just never. But for Linkin Park and for the times that we live right now, this record truly, truly is a grand masterpiece, a great musical work of art. And I truly thank the members of Linkin Park for creating my favorite Linkin Park album of all time ever. So, that's my top 5. Write your opinions on the comment section below. Maybe make your top 5. Tell me what your top 5 Linkin Park albums are. And I will see you next time. Music Fan, signing out. Take care, guys.